Nintendo's bringing back the Virtual Boy. Yeah, I've already expressed my shock to it all in a previous video. This was my shock to the prices too. It's not cheap by any means. But as I promised in that video, I said I would take a bit of a closer look at the 14 games that are planned to arrive to Nintendo's Classic service. And well, here we are. Here's a closer look at the 14 games set to arrive, and some gameplay footage for them, as well as some quick thoughts I have on the games, including of which, if I think the games are worth playing or not. Anyway, let's dive into the games. Let's kick things off with one of the best Virtual Boy games, Virtual Boy Wario Land. This game is actually the second entry in the Wario series. It's a side-scrolling platformer that plays very similar to the first game. You have power-ups that you can obtain in the form of hats that you can use to explore and take on enemies, and Wario himself can still charge at enemies too. You'll need to explore each level, find all the treasures and collectibles within, as well as obtain a key that allows you to advance to the next stage. Occasionally, you'll need to take on bosses as well. Between stages, you can gamble your fortune away for extra lives and whatnot. Now, being a Virtual Boy game, it does take advantage of the 3D effect of the system. Often Wario himself can move between the foreground and background of a stage, as well as some enemies can do the same. Bosses themselves also take full advantage of the 3D effect, moving between the foreground and background. With that in mind though, the 3D effect in the game is pretty easy to read compared to other Virtual Boy games, and it does work well for the most part. The stages themselves are pretty fun to explore. Again, it's very much like the first game, which was very good itself, and overall, this is a very good platformer for the system. If you want to check out one of the best games for the Virtual Boy, then this game should definitely be one of your first games for the system. Vertical Force is a top-down, scrolling shoot-'em-up for the Virtual Boy that was developed by Hudson Soft, and its gameplay is very similar to their own Star Soldier series, power-ups and all. The game's gimmick though, considering it is on the Virtual Boy, is the fact that you can move the ship into the background with a press of the button. This allows you to dodge obstacles and enemy attacks, as well as shoot down enemies and collect power-ups that are in the background as well. The same button when pressed will allow the ship to return to the foreground. The game starts off simple enough, but as you advance, you'll need to really master this foreground and background mechanic in order to score the most amount of points, as well as survive. Now, this isn't the most amazing shoot-'em-up ever, but I'll be honest, I found this game to be pretty fun for what it is. The 3D effects are pretty easy to understand, and the gameplay, though it's not revolutionary, is still pretty good. If you like shoot-'em-ups, then there's no reason not to give this a go. Next up is Galactic Pinball. In this one, players can choose from 4 different space-themed pinball tables. There's Cosmic, Colony, UFO, and Alien. And then you try to score as many points as you can, basically typical pinball stuff. And I like that there's 4 tables, there is a bit of variety here, but some tables are clearly more thought out than others, and the ball physics are pretty weird in this one. The ball, or rather the puck-shaped object, feels pretty floaty when it's in play. The 3D effects themselves are okay in this title for the most part. They help give it a little bit of visual flair to an otherwise plain-looking pinball game. Still though, I don't mind this game too much. There is a bunch of other pinball games that are much better out there than this one. Overall, it's a pretty okay pinball game. Mario Clash for the Virtual Boy is a game that in a way can be considered as a successor to the original Mario Bros. Arcade game. In this game, you're tasked with defeating enemies, just like before, but in this game, you cannot hit them from down below to stun them. Nope, this time, you got to use Koopa shells as your main method of attacking. You'll need to stomp on the Koopas that appear, and then pick up the shells. Once you have a shell, you can throw it left or right, or into the foreground or background in order to stun enemies. Once an enemy is stunned, you can hit them with a shell again to take them out, or just run into them to kick them off the stage. As you advance in the levels, you'll encounter different types of enemies, some that can only be stunned or attacked in certain ways. For example, Thornies. They can only be hit with a shell thrown into the foreground or background. If you try to hit them from left or right with a shell, it'll just bounce off of them. So yeah, you're going to need to figure out the best ways to deal with the enemies. Just like before, enemies can use pipes to move through different parts of the stage, but this time, you can use the pipes as well. And you'll need to, as you'll often need to move from the front of a stage to the back of a stage, and vice versa, in order to take out the enemies efficiently. Now some don't care for this game, but personally, I like this one for the Virtual Boy. I appreciate the arcade-style gameplay, and while I'll admit that it does take a little bit for the game to get going, in terms of action and challenge, when the game does ramp up, it's pretty fun trying to weave through different parts of the stage, while also trying to take out all the enemies. I say give this game a chance, especially if you're a fan of the original Mario Bros. Game, or just like arcade stuffs in general. Mario's Tennis for the Virtual Boy is actually the very first game in the Mario Tennis themed series. In this game, you get to choose from 7 characters, all of which originally appeared in Super Mario Kart. You can choose from Mario, Luigi, Peach, Yoshi, Toad, Koopa, and Donkey Kong Jr. Each character plays a little bit different from each other in terms of movement speed and contact ability with the ball. You can choose to play in a singles format or a doubles format, and then choose from a single match or play in a tournament. Gameplay itself is fairly simple. Beyond serving the ball, you have access to a top spin shot, otherwise known as a basic shot, and a lob shot. You can aim your shot with the D-pad. And that's it. Unlike later entries, there's no goofy abilities or power-ups. It's a fairly straightforward, simple version of tennis. That's pretty much it. The 3D effect is fine enough for the game, and it's very much required, as you'll need it in order to judge where the ball is going. If you try to play this one in 2D, like I'm doing here for this video, then you're going to have a pretty hard time playing it. Anyway, this is a decent tennis game, but pretty much nothing more than that. Teleroboxer is a boxing game where you box against giant robots while operating a robot yourself. Gameplay in this one is a bit similar to Punch-Out, but there's less emphasis in this game on this sort of rhythm-based gameplay that the Punch-Out series is known for. Those who have played the Punch-Out games, you will know exactly what I mean by rhythm-based gameplay. Now you can still punch or throw a jab, hit a body blow, uppercut, block, and dodge just like you expect. Now each robot you face off against will be a bit different in a way, or have a gimmick to them. For example, with the second robot you face, its head will sometimes move to its stomach, and you'll need to time some body blow shots in order to hit it. Sadly though, I never found any of these robots nearly as exciting to face off against as some of the characters you'd find in Punch-Out! For the most part, I found this boxing game to just be pretty straightforward, but one that seems to lack a spark. I did not find this one to be super exciting to play beyond the 3D effects for the robots. It needed a little bit more thought behind the gameplay. I'd just rather play a Punch-Out game than play this one. Golf for Virtual Boy tasks you with taking on one course, yes only one course, 18 holes in all. You can choose from stroke play, pretty much trying to get the best score you can, and standard tournament golf, where you compete against 47 other virtual players. Now let me cut to the chase here. Golf for Virtual Boy just stinks. It's incredibly hard to judge where your ball is going, and the control scheme, which at first glance looks like just a variation of most arcade golf controls, seems to be designed to work against the player with every swing. I mean, look at this. You gotta set your power just like any other golf game. Yeah, that pretty much makes sense. But then you got this dot that bounces around the golf ball, and somehow you gotta time it right to even hope to nail your shot. If you miss, which trust me, you will, then you're beyond screwed. Who thought this was a good idea? I mean, golf's hard enough. You don't need the golf game itself making it 10 times harder for the player to hit the ball. Do yourself a favor and just skip this one. Virtual Bowling is an import title for the Virtual Boy, and one of the platform's rarest games, being one of the last games released for the system in a very limited supply. A boxed copy for this game goes for several thousands of dollars. Anyway, as for the game itself, it is an arcade-style bowling game, where you get to choose from 3 modes. Standard, which is a quick match mode, Training, where you can practice the controls, and Tournament mode, where you can compete against CPU opponents. Now the controls will admittedly take a bit to get used to. After choosing your position in front of a bowling lane, 2 meters will appear, The first one affects the ball spin, and the second one your power. The first meter that goes side to side that affects the ball spin is pretty freaking fast, and you're likely to mess up your timing quite a bit until you get a handle on it. Once you do though, and get used to how the ball moves, then you'll discover that it's a decent bowling game to play. It's not an amazing one, it's alright and fun for what it is, a perfectly playable and simple bowling game experience. The 3D effects in this one look nice though. It provides a nice depth effect to the graphics. Innsmouth no Yakata, and pardon me as I most likely murdered that name, is a first-person survival horror game for the Virtual Boy. Yes, it's pretty ambitious. You gotta move through corridors of a haunted mansion in a first-person perspective while trying to collect items, as well as finding a way out of the mansion. Along the way, you'll encounter various monsters that you'll need to deal with or avoid. Luckily, you can find bullets that you can use against the monsters, but be warned, bullets are scarce. Now, I found this game to be pretty cool, at least in concept, but it's a pretty hard game. I keep dying a lot, and the bullets that they do give you are not enough at all to deal with the amount of enemies that appear. Of course, you gotta time your shots to nail the monsters. You do not want to miss a shot, but the monsters themselves will outnumber you pretty quickly, and you're gonna run out of ammo fast. I mean, I get it. It is survival horror, that makes sense. But even if you try to get away, odds are you're gonna run smack dab into another monster and be trapped. That can be frustrating, as there's nothing you can do about it when that does happen. Maybe I'm just missing something about the game. I mean, it could be that. But after quite a few attempts, I found myself not really having as much fun as I hoped. It's a shame too, because I really wanted to like this one. Red Alarm is a 3D shoot-'em-up that seems to be inspired by the Star Fox games, as well as the arcade game Battlezone. The graphics are wireframe models for the most part, and instead of being a rail shooter, this shoot-'em-up takes place entirely in a 3D space that you can explore. Now as for the gameplay, it is pretty straightforward. In each level, you gotta defeat enemies by shooting them, while also trying to find the end of a level, and usually take on a boss. Unfortunately though, this game seems to be a bit much for the Virtual Boy's red and black color scheme. All the wireframed models can be pretty hard to read and understand, and it's super easy as heck to accidentally crash into something simply because you can't determine what is what. It is a visual mess. If you can somehow figure out what is going on, then there is a decent shooter underneath it all here, but this game is more than likely to give you a headache first before that even happens. Jack Brothers is a game that was developed and published by Atlas, and it's a spin-off of their famous Megami Tensei series, as well as the first game in the series to be released outside Japan. It's also considered by many to be one of the better games for the Virtual Boy. Now, unlike most of Atlas's games, this is not an RPG. Nope, this is a top-down maze game. The premise of this game has you playing as one of the three Jack brothers, Jack Frost, Jack Lantern, or Jack Skeleton, who after visiting the human world for Halloween, needs to return to the fairy world before the portal connecting the two worlds close. After choosing your character, you'll need to explore through 6 areas, all of which consist of a number of floors, while defeating enemies and collecting keys in order to advance to the next level. Along the way, you'll be guided by a character named Pixie, who will often give you heads up about new enemies, many of which you're going to need to defeat in order to progress. All 3 characters have 2 different attacks at their disposal, a standard attack and a special attack, all of which are unique to each character. For the standard attack, Jack Frost will throw snowballs, Jack Lantern throws fireballs, and Jack Skeleton uses a knife. Their specials see Jack Frost freezing a screen for a few seconds, Jack Lantern dealing a large amount of damage to all enemies, and Skeleton instantly defeating most enemies that are visible on the screen. Now with special attacks, they can only be activated if a player has any special attack stars, so you can't just spam them non-stop. As you defeat enemies, collect keys, and explore, you'll need to do so as fast as you can, as you're racing against the clock, and if the timer hits 0, well, you will lose a life. Now all that said, the gameplay is pretty fun, if a bit basic. The controls are easy to pick up and play, just like any good maze game. and it's pretty easy to get into the rhythm of defeating enemies, finding keys, and jumping down to the next floor in order to get to the next level. Occasionally, you'll need to take on bosses, many of which have different attacks that you'll need to avoid while hitting them with your own attacks. As challenging as these bosses can be, they are a lot of fun to face off against, and they really help to shake things up in the maze exploring that is the majority of the game. Now as for the 3D effects, for this one it's pretty simple, just adding an illusion of depth between the floors and that's pretty much it. Unless you're opposed to maze games, I would say this one, at the very least, is worth checking out if you're curious about the Virtual Boy library. It's a solid game for it, and I've had fun checking it out for this video. Space Invaders Virtual Collection is another Virtual Boy game that was originally only available in Japan. This is a collection of 2 games, Space Invaders and Space Invaders Part 2, both of which can be played in 3 different modes in this collection. The first mode is Virtual 3D, and in this one, the playfield switches to a third-person perspective, enemies and all. The second mode, Original Mode, allows you to play in the traditional 2D format. And the third mode, Challenge Mode, tasks you with either scoring as many points as you can in a set amount of time, or by playing the games in a time attack mode. Now to be honest, this is not the best collection out there, and most certainly not the best way to play the Space Invaders games. That especially goes for the Virtual 3D mode. In that mode, it's pretty hard to determine the positions of the enemies, as well as their bullets flying at you. The 2D mode is the better way to play in this collection, but at that point, you might as well look elsewhere for your Space Invaders fix. 3D Tetris is a puzzle game where you play in a 3-dimensional playfield, as opposed to the typical 2D playfield like most Tetris games. The 3D playfield consists of 5 vertical layers that players can fill with blocks. You can rotate a falling block horizontally and vertically as they fall down, and you'll need to completely fill in a layer in order to clear the blocks for points. The 3D aspect in this one does take a little bit to get used to, but luckily on the side of the stage, you can view the layers in 2D, which you can use to help you see where the blocks are. The modes in this game consist of 3D Tetris, aka the standard mode, a puzzle mode where you try to solve puzzles with 3D Tetris blocks, and a center fill mode where the center of the stage cannot be filled with blocks and you must work around that. Overall, I find this game to be a decent variation of Tetris, and it's one I do recommend checking out for the Virtual Boy if you're into puzzle games. V-Tetris is another Japanese exclusive for the Virtual Boy, and as much as I like 3D Tetris, this Tetris game is the one that I, as well as many others, consider to be the better of the 2 Tetris games to play for the system. This one, for the most part, plays like most 2D Tetris games. Now there's 3 different modes in this one. A mode, which is the traditional endless Tetris mode, where every 10 lines cleared, the game speeds up. The second mode, known as B mode, has the player clearing a set amount of lines in order to advance to the next level. Finally, there is C mode, and this one is a bit different. C mode is otherwise known as Loop Tetris, and this one changes the playfield to a cylindrical Style 1 where you need to rotate the playfield by using the L and R buttons, sort of like the 3D mode that you would see in the Puzzle League series. It's by far my favorite mode of the 3 just because it's a little bit different from traditional 2D Tetris. The 3D effect in this game is pretty mild compared to the other Virtual Boy games, as it's mainly used for just the background animations. So yeah, it's not nearly as impressive as the other Virtual Boy games, but that also means that it makes this game pretty easy to see. Overall, this is a solid game for the Virtual Boy. It's one of the better games to play, and it's one that you should definitely check out. And that's it for my look at the 14 games that Nintendo is planning to add to the Virtual Boy Nintendo Classics app when it comes out in February. Out of all the games that I checked out for this video, top 5 that I had the most fun with, I would say, are Wario Land, V-Tetris, Jack Brothers, Mario Clash, and Vertical Force. Golf, by far, was the worst game though. It's awful. Stay away from that one. I hope this video helps you out, whether you're planning to check out the Virtual Boy on the Switch or not, or just curious about the Virtual Boy games themselves. Anyway, that is it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you do not miss out on any future videos. I'll catch you real soon on the next one.